Okay, we're recording, so we're going to get started. Hello. Good morning, everyone. All right, we are now recording, so we're live. Welcome. We'll call this meeting to order. Good morning. This is January 8th, 2026. This is the Technical Coordinating Committee for the CRTPO. The time is now 10:02. We'll start with introductions at the table to my left and go around the table, and then we'll start in the room to my left.
Good morning, Rich Hoffman, Iredell County.
Andrew Golden, Town of Davidson.
Heather Maloney, Town of Huntersville.
Matt Kirkendall, City of Statesville.
Sophie King, Town of Morrisville.
Emily Hines, Village of Wesley Chapel.
Aaron Tucker, Town of Cornelius.
Bjorn Hansen, Union County.
Todd Huntsinger, Indian Trail.
Mike Castillo, NCDOT, Transition Planning Division.
Justin Russell, Town of Stallings.
Bryson Hester, City of Monroe.
Andrew Ventresca, Town of Troutman.
Travis Johnson, CRTPO.
Liz Babson, City of Charlotte.
Dan Lever, Charlotte General Services.
Brian Horton, Katz, representing MTC.
Diane Thomas, Mecklenburg County Public Health Focus Area.
Neil Paniker at CDOT Division 12.
Dave Campbell, City of Charlotte.
Wen Cook, Greenway Focus Area.
James Kelly, Town of Waxhaw.
Megan Green, Mecklenburg County Air Quality.
Sean Epperson, NCDOT Division 10.
Mike Polarski, CLT Airport.
Steve Fry, Town of Mint Hill.
Judy Dellert, CRTPO.
Kendall Glenn, CRTPO.
Olin Dalehousen, Pond and Company.
Michelle, Common Company. Marty Henning, City of Charlotte.
Justin Carroll, Charlotte DOT. Darrell Wilson, Katz. Alan Thompson, Charlotte Area Train.
Laura Johnson, Charlotte Area Transit.
Martin Kennedy, Charlotte DOT.
Jill Knapp, VHB.
Bob Cook, CRTPO.
Scott Miller, NCDOT.
Frank, WSP.
Porter Williams, Charlotte.
Yogi Thea, NCDOT.
And Hamilton. Mr. Jackie Town Matthews. Jill ISNH. Sarah Poplar, Charlotte. Christine Gross, Union County Public Health.
Andrew Babb, Portland, Maine. Earl Litter, CRTPO.
And CRT. Stafford, CRT.
I'm Tom Colton. CRT.
Thompson, CRT.
And again, welcome everyone. All right, our first item on today's agenda is to adopt the agenda. We do have one change to the agenda. Under information items, staffing and resources study, Richard Denbo is not with us today, so we're not going to cover that item. So may I have a motion for the adoption of today's agenda with the change I just explained?
I'll make a motion with the change that you have explained.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. That carries unanimously. All right, our next item is to adopt today's consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask that some additional information be added to the minutes from the November agenda to note the concerns I expressed about the Joint Legislative Priority Support Project item.
Right. So can we
State the
Yeah.
changes.
Oh, okay.
changes?
Sure. That the concern was duplication of efforts, considering existing information shared through the National, State, and Regional Association of MPOs, NCDOT, CATS, CARTPO staff, and existing Central Ina periodic updates.
Right, thank you. May I have a a motion for the adoption of today's consent agenda with the changes that Bjorn just described for the approval of the November 6th, 2025 TCC minutes and the 2026-2035 TIP amendments.
So moved.
Thank you. And may I have a second? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That carries unanimously. All right, Travis is going to walk us through election of officers. But before I hand it over to him, I'd like to take a couple of moments as the chair. For those of you that don't know, I am nearing retirement and will retire officially from the city of Charlotte later this year. And as such, I had to make a difficult decision to step down from this role because I wanted to have a clean transfer of election of officers and not disrupt the middle of this year by my departure. So with that, I am going to step down from chair and let you all continue your business in election of officers, and would like to just put in a word of encouragement for my colleague, Andrew Ventresca, who has done a phenomenal job supporting this board as a vice chair in all of the work that he does in helping lead through the selection of projects. And so with that, just a couple more comments. Just want to say thank you to you all. Don't ever lose sight of the important work that you do in serving on this TCC committee. You guys are responsible for millions of dollars of transportation money going into our region. And so that is a significant responsibility. I have appreciated working with all of you. And you have lots of challenges that lie ahead. So good luck with all of that. I'll turn it over to Travis and I'm going to step away. Great. Thank you.
Thank you for all you've done for us. Again, thank you very much, Liz, for your leadership and support for this organization through your years as chair and as a member of this committee. As we get ready to start 2026, we will need to elect a new TCC chair and vice chair. I'm gonna have to read some of these rules. We only do this once a year, so please bear with me. For today's procedures, we'll conduct elections first for the chair and then second for the vice chair. The nominee with the majority vote wins the election. If no nominee wins a majority vote, a second round of voting will be conducted and all nominees will remain eligible for consideration. Before making a nomination for the chair and vice chair, please state your name for the record. Secretary that's me, will ask for nominations and if they consent to the nomination. If a nominee gives their consent, I will then state out who is being nominated for the position and if there are any further nominations. We will continue until there are no other nominations. If only one nominee is selected, then if there are no objections, we can just declare that nominee elected. And if there are several nominees, then we will conduct a roll call vote for each of the nominees. And then after each vote or after each nomination, I will announce the nominee that has received the majority of votes, and then we will move on to from chair to vice chair and then move on to the next item on the agenda. So there's no questions about today's proceedings. That's just the process I just read to you. So there's no questions about today's proceedings. I'm asking for a motion to open the nominations for the 2026 chair. A second is required for this motion. So can I get a motion to open the chair and then a second?
So move.
Second.
Second. So Brian, then Heather. Great. So with that, I'll ask, were there any, or do we have any nominations for TCC chair for 2026?
I do. Matt Kirkendall, City of Statesville, would like to nominate Andrew Ventresca for chair.
Matt Kirkendall from Statesville nominates Andrew Ventresca. Andrew, do you accept this nomination?
Like my wedding vows, I do.
All right, so that he's given his consent. Are there any other nominees for this position? All right, hearing no nominations, nominations are now closed. So with that, we can dispense with the roll call. Are there any objections to declaring the nominee elected? Congratulations, Andrew Ventresca. You are the 2026. So with that, we're going to ask for a nomination to open the 2026 TCC Vice Chair. I will need a nomination and a second. I mean, a request to open in a second.
So move.
All right, so Brian made the motion to open the nominations. And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Drew Ventresca has seconded that request. So with that, the floor is open to nominations. Before making the nomination for vice chair, please state your name for the record.
Dan Lever, Charlotte General Services. I'd like to nominate Justin Carroll for the vice chair.
Justin Carroll, do you accept the nomination for vice chair?
I do.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? All right, I hear no other nominations. So hearing none, nominations are now closed. We have the ability to dispense with the roll call vote because we only had one nomination. Are there any objections to declaring the nominee elected? Hearing none, Justin Carroll is now vice chair of the CRTP or the TCC. Thank you very much. So with that, Chair.
Okay, we've got one more business item to take care of, and that's the election of focus area representatives. You had a memo in your packet explaining who was up for these representative positions, and I'll turn it over to Travis for this item.
Thank you. In addition to electing chair and vice chair this year, we also need to elect our focus area representatives for bicycle, greenway, pedestrian, and public health. These are positions that are held for a one-year term, and we nominate them in January typically. So the request today is to appoint the focus area delegates and alternates shared in the memorandum in the agenda packet. Focus areas represent or serve as voting members of the TCC. We typically like to have a delegate and an alternate for each of the positions. However, sometimes these positions are hard to find just due to staff availability and ability to participate. Appointees must be employed by a municipality or county government that is a voting member of the CRTPO, and they stay for 1 calendar year with no limits on the number of terms that they may serve. So in 2025, here's the list of participants. We did have some members who were unable to continue working as a member of the focus area reps from the previous year. So with that, this is the proposed list for 2026. We're excited to share that Union County has someone who's willing to participate if nominated for Chris. And then also we have a new pedestrian focus area rep with Sarah Poplin. However, we are still looking for an alternate. So if you have members of your staff that have an interest in pedestrian focus area or pedestrian transportation needs, we would like to fill the second position, which we need to come back to the TCC to vote on. And then for bicycle and greenway, we'll maintain the same representatives from the previous year. And then again, our primary, Diane Thomas, will still continue to serve as public health. The list of representatives were shared with the bicycle and pedestrian work group. There were no concerns shared other than the desire to have a second pedestrian representative. So that way, if Sarah is unavailable to attend, we'd have an alternate. So with that, request is to appoint the focus area delegates and alternates for 2026 as presented on the previous slide.
So move.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. It's Megan Green.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, congratulations, you've all been appointed.
Thank you. And then also, Sarah, please join the table as a focus area rep. And I think all the other reps are already at the table. So thank you very much.
Okay, we have 4 informational items to share today. The first item is regarding the 2027 Unified Planning Work Program. Mr. Cook will go ahead and lead us in an update.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Good morning, everyone. And before I start, I also wanted to echo what Travis said, Liz, about all the support that you provided to the TCC and to staff as well during your time as chair. It's much appreciated. And hopefully you'll stick around for most of the calendar year along with me. So we're back talking about our Unified Planning Work Program. We talked a little bit about this in November, but we didn't have many details at this point, and we do have a few more details now. So the purpose of today's presentation is to review that first draft, and this is very much a draft, by the way. So what we'll talk about today are a little bit of background, our funding summary, Section 5303 allocations, those are the FTA dollars we receive, discuss our key initiatives and some of our major tasks in the coming year, go over preliminary allocations, talk about local projects and carryovers, and then next steps. And much of this follows the memorandum that was in your agenda packet. So in terms of some of those basics, this is, again, our budget. And the purpose is to ensure that the 3C planning process that you hear us refer to occasionally is fully implemented. And it identifies all the activities that we anticipate for the coming fiscal year. So everything that we are planning to do, that we need to do under federal and state law, those projects are all identified in the work program, in addition to any other activities. And it really forms the foundation for how we allocate the dollars that we receive to the individual projects. So in terms of funding, a little bit of this is new from the November meeting. I believe at that time, the Section 104F or the PL funds or planning funds, as we call them, that number was solid, I think, at that point in November when we talked about this. And then the STBGDA money, that's a standard year in, year out amount that we draw down to help support our planning projects, or planning initiatives, I should say. And then I believe the Section 5303 money information, the final information, was received after the November meeting. So that is the final amount. These are federal dollars, by the way. This does not include local match. And that, like the PL money, represents an increase from the current fiscal year. And that, by the way, that is all due to the distribution methodologies that are employed by NCDOT, both the Transportation Planning Division for the PL money and the Integrated Mobility Division for the Section 5303 dollars. So that will fluctuate. That's why you see those dollars fluctuating from year to year. In terms of the Section 5303 funds, these are the allocations that these are the dollars that were requested. They do reflect additional money to some agencies based upon those additional dollars that we received. And then, of course, as you may have seen in the memorandum, and I'll get into this in a moment, we are looking at using some of those additional dollars for a CRTPO activity as well. But these are the requested amounts, and I'm happy to note that we were able to fulfill all the requests for this fiscal year. In terms of our key initiatives, we started doing this a few years ago to highlight to folks really where a lot of our effort will be during any given fiscal year. Some of those, again, key activities that will take up a lot of our time and effort. So these are those high impact projects that still at the same time advance our mission and vision. Even though they might be a one-shot deal, they're still critical in doing that. So what we've identified for 2026 is transit planning. There will be a lot of changes in 2026 regarding transit planning due to the new authority that will be that's actually underway right now, and our activities and how we interact with the new authority. But a lot has happened on the transit planning front for us as an organization in the I guess 6 years since Darrell joined us as a transit planner. That came out of the original staffing and resources study to focus more on transit planning. And we thought it was a good time to sort of on one hand, step back and look to see what we've done, but also to look ahead to see what we need to be doing over the next 5 years. And then performance-based planning, we're really going to be focused next fiscal year on kind of reinvigorating what we do with performance-based planning. And you'll hear two presentations about performance-based planning right after this. And then, of course, we're getting into the development of our comprehensive safety action plans starting this year, this fiscal year, but definitely extending into FY26. And then lastly, the staffing and resources study. I was hoping you'd hear a little bit about that this morning prior to this presentation, but our speaker, Rich Denbo with Cambridge Systematics, had a family emergency, couldn't make it today. By the way, I'm going to talk to Rich to see how we might approach a presentation. Can we wait till February? Maybe a transportation staff meeting might be a good venue. We'll see where that goes. But implementing the results of the staffing and resources study will be a significant part of our efforts next year. In terms of major tasks, a lot, of course, what we do is required by federal law and state law to a certain extent as well. Development of a TIP, public engagement, our discretionary grants program. We'll also be, of course, continuing to support the SEAM effort, Beyond 77, the strategic plan, particularly with the update that Brian led us through last year and implementing those strategies. And then I referenced using some of the additional Section 5303 funds for a CRTPO initiative. And this will be a complete streets initiative that Travis and Jarrell have both worked on. What's important about that is there's no local match under IIJA. When you engage in activities associated with complete streets, you don't have to provide any sort of local match. So that's very helpful. Your memorandum had more details about the initiative, but in terms of deliverables for that, we're talking about a handbook or a guide, educational material, and a pilot project, all to support initiatives in your communities. And we're happy to answer any questions about that if you have them today. In terms of our allocations, this is a first draft, and again, I can't emphasize that enough. These allocations so far look very similar to the current fiscal year. We've not had an opportunity yet to review the first and second quarter expenditures. The second quarter just ended about a week ago, and there have been some delays in terms of the transfer of the city's financial platform to a new tool called Workday. A few glitches here and there, but hopefully we'll be able to take a look at those expenditures soon, and that will inform what the final expenditures or final allocations really need to look like. And hopefully in February, when we come back to you, we'll have something a bit more solid. And we have to do some additional analysis as well, of course. In terms of the local planning projects that need to be incorporated into the work program, we'll have a presentation about the discretionary grants program coming up. But these are the 5 projects up top there that were selected, planning projects that were selected through that process. They have to be incorporated into the work program. And so we're assuming that the board will approve these projects. And for the purposes of UPWP development at this stage. And then once they do, hopefully they will, we'll finally incorporate them into the final document. And then there are carryover projects, projects that were implemented in a previous fiscal year, but were not, can't be completed during a given fiscal year. So they have to be carried over into the following year. And so we have the 3 listed there, and my thanks to to Brian for reminding me about the oversight about the the two cats related projects that need to be included. And then next steps, we'll complete those detailed task code allocations, hopefully by the end of the month, working on document design, text for the document as well, so it's very clear what we're spending our money on. We do have to assess those first and second quarter expenditures. Probably we'll bring this to a staff meeting at some point later on this month, and then we'll be bringing that second draft to you in February, you and the board. And by that point, those numbers, those allocations should pretty much be final. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook.
Good, thank you.
The next two items are performance-based planning related. The first being 2026 safety targets, the second being 2026 transit performance targets. They'll be given to us by Will Snyder. Will, feel free to roll into the transit performance targets when you're completed with the safety targets.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Good morning. Will Snyder with the CRTPO. So as Andrew just introduced, I'll be presenting on performance-based planning and covering two types of performance metrics that we are seeking approval for in February with your information this month. The first being traffic safety targets. And just to provide a quick overview, so the CRTPO is responsible for coordinating with both NCDOT and our area transit providers to conduct performance-based planning. This is critical for a couple different reasons. As I'll preview in the next few slides, we have both roadway and transit-focused targets. And so respectively, those are managed by Federal Highway or Federal Transit Administration. And we have requirements that trickle down from those agencies to conduct this. We also bake all of this information into each Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So the 2055 MTP, you will see this updated information reflected in that plan seeking adoption later this winter, this spring. We also coordinate all of the regional planning with statewide initiatives. So there's certain statewide plans that feed the targets or certain statewide processes that feed the targets or set those targets and strategies to achieve them. And then just generally, it demonstrates value and necessary investments in transportation. So this is a means for us to track the impact of investment in long-range planning through this process. We are currently undergoing a process to refresh how we report and just generally educate on performance-based planning. We have had resources available on our website for some time, but they have been in need of some updates. So one of the big parts of this refresh is updating this information on our webpage. Right there, www.crtpo.org/performance. You can view some just updated information about where these requirements come from, who we coordinate with, resources that'll be presented in today's meeting, and so on and so forth. But we're also looking at how we collect and coordinate with our transit providers in the planning area and work with NCDOT on our highway or roadway targets as well. This all is to lead up to, if you've been following kind of the reauthorization process that happens every 4 years. Reauthorization is a congressional process where you are reauthorizing new transportation funding federally. So we are doing this now really to anticipate potential changes or affirmation from a new federal transportation bill as to what needs to be tracked, what this administration's priorities are for federal transportation investment, and so on. So this is an important process for us to get ahead of now as well. So specifically for roadway measures, there's 3 different categories you can see on the screen here. So those are coded as PM 1, 2, and 3. What we're focusing on today is PM 1, which is traffic safety. So that focuses on your rate of fatalities, serious injuries, and non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. But it also covers some other roadway measures that we coordinate with NCDOT on. So pavement and bridge condition, and then system performance. So how well and how reliable is the transportation system working? Under federal law and federal requirements, we are supposed to annually approve traffic safety targets. The other 2 areas, we typically just have staff approval of the reports that come out of those. But the traffic safety area is a federal requirement to ensure that we're being transparent about the goals that we're setting to reduce serious crash rates. So that's what we'll be focusing on today. And so again, this is required by the FHWA. And so they mandate something called a safety measure adoption via what's called a Highway Safety Improvement Program, or HSIP. So that's kind of the federal strategy for how we are tracking and reducing crash rates. That trickles down to NCDOT in what they have developed called the NC Strategic Highway Safety Plan. So that's the state actually setting those strategies, setting those targets and meaningful goals towards reducing crash rates. And that comes to the MPO because we are either required to approve those state targets that NCDOT develops for the entire state or develop our own MPO specific targets. And so in addition to that, we then proceed with programming projects that will meet those goals. So it really ensures that from federal all the way to the region, we are doing as much coordination to meet these targets as possible. In the CRTPO planning area, we do not develop our own safety targets yet. So we take the NCDOT targets and essentially seek approval from the board, and then NCDOT submits that information to our federal highway partners. So, and I will say as well, if you've been with the TCC, this is familiar information maybe from last year. We do this about the same time every year. So what I'm showing on the screen here are all of the performance measure categories broken out, again, number and rate of each category. And then the calendar year 25 target that was approved again around the same time in 2025. And then the proposed calendar year 2026 target. I will say these targets have not been met for what I believe is the 5th or 6th consecutive year. There is justification for that from NCDOT in your agenda packet. Starting on page 19, we have the memo that summarizes our role and some of the information I just shared. But NCDOT's memo as to how they set these targets and progress they'll be making towards the new targets begins on page 21. So you'll see the rate change for number of fatalities is 46.3 from 25 to 26. Rate is 0.04. Number of serious injuries, we're seeking to reduce that by another 103.8. Rate of serious injuries of 0.085, and then non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries reduction at a rate of 15.9. Okay, so blue column is what we're seeking to approve this year. And I'll just talk a little bit about what we're doing at the MPO level to really address traffic safety. So today we have our discretionary grants program. For many of you in the room whose communities have applied to that program before, you're aware that we score safety within the project scoring policy. Roadway is scored at 21% of the total overall project score, whereas bike ped projects are 18%. And so that's a key way that we currently fund projects and try to incentivize more safety being baked into the projects that we fund. We also have our Complete Streets policy that was adopted November of 2024, and we are working towards a design guidebook for our member communities to use to kind of have some tangibles as to what complete streets look like out of that policy. And then we have within our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the roadway ranking process also allocates points to safety as well. So that's a consideration more in our long-range planning that we do. In terms of what we are anticipating to do, as Bob previewed earlier, one of our key initiatives for this upcoming fiscal year, and really starting this month, is our Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. So this is funded through a $3.15 million Safe Streets and Roads for All discretionary grant. And that is helping us develop what's called the CSAP, essentially our regional Vision Zero plan that will cover the entire planning area with a blueprint for how we are seeking to reduce these crashes. And this is a policy document for the MPO, so this will review what policies within the discretionary grants program we can be more stringent about for funding safety. But it'll also really look internally at how we long-range plan safety as well. And so we are working with our consultant, Stan Tech, to essentially do a set of deliverables. And this is a very high level because it is a long project. It's about 24 to 32 months that we'll be doing data analysis, road safety audits, so actually going to the physical locations and looking at where our safety challenges occur, prioritizing projects for the region to consider for safety investment, developing new local safety action plans. So any of our communities that do not have Vision Zero efforts today will receive a local blueprint that ties directly into the regional document. And then we will be developing new safety targets. So the MPO will develop its own and approve its own. And then we will have an internal policy review to just ensure that we're systemically embedding safety in more of what we do. And so on these targets specifically, today you're receiving this information. The board will receive this information as well on the 21st, and then we will come back for approval for the TCC to recommend these targets to the board and the board to approve them during the February board meeting. And that information is as follows, which is recommend that the CRTPO board approve NCDOT's 26 traffic safety targets and agree to program those projects to meet those targets. Staff recommends approving these per our federal requirement, but also to anticipate that we will develop our own system for setting these targets as part of our CSAP moving forward. So this is procedural this year, but we look forward to setting these and being more accountable to these for just our region moving forward. With that, on traffic safety, any questions?
Any questions for Will? All right. Go ahead and move forward.
Roll right in. Yeah, so next we'll cover transit performance. So again, another federal requirement that we have to coordinate with our transit agencies this time instead of NCDOT. And we are required to either approve those transit agency targets or develop regional transit agency targets. We choose to accept our transit providers' targets as the MPOs. So that's kind of similar to our traffic safety targets that way, and then agree to program those, again, just as similar as our traffic safety ones. So these are broken into two broad categories that our transit providers have to report on. And those are transit assets, or transit asset management, as it's more commonly referred to, and transit safety. So within those, there are different target areas that our providers both track in terms of what they have actually performed, and then set targets for related to their anticipated revenue miles for the upcoming reporting period. So in transit assets, that covers pretty much your bread and butter of, as a transit agency, what you're managing in terms of physical assets. So everything from your rolling stock, your buses, your rail vehicles, any form of fleet, essentially, your equipment, your facilities, and then your infrastructure, like parking facilities or any sort of supportive passenger facilities. And then in terms of transit safety, you're really focused on safety of the system. So major safety events, collisions, fatalities and injuries, and then transit worker safety, as well as system reliability. You'll see on the screen, there's asterisks next to a couple of these measures. That's because in 2024, the FTA revised a rule that essentially added more tracking measures. And so what you will see today for transit safety will reflect the 2025 targets that we've received last year, because several of our providers are still working on finalizing their targets for these new performance measures this year. Happy to answer questions around that, because it's kind of, we're in the midst of some change in terms of how that's being reported. But to break this down for where the CRTPO planning area covers these agencies, you can rationalize them into Tier 1 and Tier 2. So Tier 1 is an agency that's operating 101 or more revenue vehicles and or fixed rail service. So that essentially automatically makes you a Tier 1 provider. And our Tier 1 provider in the planning area is CATS. And they create both their own transit asset management plan, but also their own transit safety plan, or PTASP. Our Tier 2 agencies are our smaller providers. So they're operating 100 or fewer revenue vehicles. They include ICATS in Iredell County, Mecklenburg Transportation System, or MTS, and then Union County Transportation. And so NCDOT, because they are a Tier 2 provider, NCDOT supports them by creating a joint asset plan. So those providers submit their information to NCDOT. The state administers that process for them. It's a little more burdensome. So for the state to manage that, makes it easier to put it into a group plan, and then that is submitted. But all providers create their own safety plan. So all 4 of our providers are developing those targets themselves. In your memo, I have, again, a page reference for you, because I'm going to kind of go through these a little bit quickly. But starting on page 26, you will see the memo that covers this information and has tables with all of these targets. So it's quite a bit of data on the screen. So I'll roll through these here. So our first category is rolling stock. Again, CATS develops their own targets, and then NCDOT develops all of the targets on behalf of Tier 2 providers in our planning area. So you can see these categories here, all of the different asset classes, the useful life benchmark that FTA determines that these assets should be replaced. You have an option to either default to the FTA useful life benchmark or set a different benchmark as an agency. So CAT sets their own, NCDOT defaults to the federal guidelines. And then we go to the equipment category. There are those targets there. Facilities. And then infrastructure. Again, this is summarized in your memo. Happy to answer questions about the data though, but quite a bit of information that has to be on the screen here. The next category is then transit safety. And again, these are the 2025 targets. So I will emphasize that this is the information that was submitted last year because we are still waiting to collect the 2026 targets, which you will receive. I'll get to my schedule slide. You will receive that information, just not today necessarily. So first we have safety events for each mode by agency. The occurrence of injuries for each mode by agency. The target for fatalities for each mode by agency. And then the target for system reliability. So essentially how frequently a major mechanical failure would occur by vehicle revenue miles. So again, you're receiving this information today. The 2026 transit safety targets will be sent to you via email in a memo by January 20th. So I believe I have all of the targets now. I just have to organize them and kind of help you have more information about them. So you'll receive that information by the 20th. Then the board will get this information on the 21st. And then we will seek approval on these first from TCC to recommend them on the 5th of February, and then board approval on February 18th. And that action is very similar to the traffic safety targets, which is that we recommend the CRTPO board approve the 26 asset and safety targets from each provider and agree to program projects towards those targets. Staff recommends this, again, because it's a federal requirement and it helps us incorporate these into the 2055 MTP. And with that, I will take any questions on transit targets.
Any questions on transit targets?
I think I know the answer to this, but is there any penalty for not meeting the targets? I think the answer is no, but I was just curious.
Typically, you have to submit whatever corrective action you'll take. So especially for safety, every agency develops a public transit safety action plan. And so they're setting strategies to reduce towards those targets. And FTA will make inquiries on that and conduct what's called a triennial review that holistically looks at your system on a periodic basis. So there's touch points with the feds to ensure that you're being compliant with what you're committing to.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Can I piggyback on that and take a half step backwards to the traffic safety?
Sure.
I was reading the DOT memo and it said what you just said. There's really no direct penalty, but it just seems weird that I think you said 4 or 5 years we have not met, but we're still lowering the targets. So I mean, I'm not psychic, but we're probably not going to meet the next ones, right? I would hate to see that. This kind of feels like maybe there's a wave swelling. Will this create a problem in the future for us? Do we jeopardize funding if we keep swinging and missing at these targets? That might open Pandora's box there of should we look at different local targets and exercise that option? I don't know.
Yep. So that's part of our process, is evaluating the benefits, the pros and cons to setting our own regional targets. In terms of penalties to NCDOT, I'm not too sure. There are specific federal requirements from the Highway Safety Improvement Program where they at least need to be setting those strategies to reduce. And I will say North Carolina's got a really robust strategic highway safety plan. It's a really nice document that has some specific partners that are assigned to reduce drunk driving, improve seatbelt use, different aspects of transportation safety. So the state is making progress towards, I think, individual priorities, but it's difficult when you're setting a statewide target to generalize. You're likely going to never hit that target. Quite frankly, that's the impetus for the safety action plan. I was personally pretty unmotivated by it. I think we've had a lot of questions from our board about why we're not ever making a target and then moving the goalpost. So plans are to change that in our region.
Steve, I appreciate you opening up with that question. That's something I've been chewing on. And one thing that seems weird to me is that we are targeting serious injury and fatalities as a number when that's in direct opposite of our Vision Zero policies and visions. Now, I don't know what that looks like. I realize, as you were saying, having a meaningful target that you hit or don't hit. If we never hit it, what's the harm of putting 0 fatalities and 0 serious injuries as a target?
Agreed. Yep. We are very interested in trying to, so those are the federally defined targets. We have to set those or have to approve them. I think I would be curious to see within federal reauthorization if there's congressional interest in reevaluating those, or at least seeing how they're defined. Because it is a priority of this administration federally to focus on safety. It appears to be a DOT priority still. And so we'll see how that changes. As an MPO, we can also set our own kind of KPIs. So if we wanted to track our progress towards that reduction, I would encourage that. And that's something that we'll be looking at as part of our performance refresh as well. So agreed. Yeah.
I would argue the risk of putting those zeros is lulling us into thinking that our current trajectory is going to get us there. No different than really the random numbers that we have up there now. We keep lowering it and thinking we're doing such a good job, but doesn't look like we are.
Yes, sir.
Since we're having such a fun conversation about traffic safety, if I may join in, I know some areas, other cities, states, countries have made some progress, more than we're making. From a MPO perspective, maybe a policy perspective, are you aware of what policies or what they're doing to at least make progress to their goals, if not 0, some lower number that maybe we don't have on the books that we could look at?
Yeah, so scoped within our comprehensive safety action plan is a policy review. So we'll be working with our consultant to look at both inward at our own policies. We'll be supporting our member jurisdictions with looking at policies locally that are improving or inhibiting traffic safety, just advancement. But then also, yes, national benchmarking against other MPOs and the work that they're doing. Because we would like to take best practices as best as possible in policy and data analysis and how we fund. So yes, we will be looking at that, but have not quite yet.
And do you have like a month or a season you'll get to that piece of it so I can put it on my calendar?
Yeah, I have the project schedule, not with me, but you can expect that. I want to say around this summer, Jennifer, does that sound about right with our schedule? Yeah, I want to say right at the turn of the fiscal year, that task should be completed by our consultant. Yep.
Go ahead.
Just a follow-up question on that. So as far as the scope, does that include looking at proactive models, proactive approaches, that sort of thing? Because when you look at fatalities and serious injuries, that's a reactive model. You're changing something after a fatality or a serious injury has occurred. So I'm just curious what proactive approaches could be looked into.
Yeah, agree entirely, James. So that is why, in addition to developing a regional high injury network, that reactive, here's what the data tells us today tool, we will be doing what's called a systemic risk analysis. So that takes a mixture of data inputs and essentially says, based on current infrastructure relative to projected growth and demand on that roadway network or intersection, this is what you can anticipate the traffic safety shortfalls to be. So that will be more of our, here is current state, lack of lighting, unsafe crossing locations, things that are likely to cause more risky behavior or just create more risky environments for safety. Yes, Diane.
Well, one of the issues, with Vision Zero is near misses. Is that something the consultant's going to be looking at?
Yep. So they will be prioritizing a series of networks throughout our whole planning area. And essentially, at one intersection within each of those identified corridors, we'll hang a kind of like an AI generated camera that will essentially track traffic and pedestrian movements within that high risk intersection that we did through the data analysis to identify it as a priority and actually measure what those risks are. So is it disobeying red lights? Is it crossing at risky times? Is it just generally not having enough time or space to do anything safe at an intersection? So yes, we will have a near miss analysis using some more innovative software. Yeah. This is a very big plan that we are very excited for. You will hear a lot more updates on it, but it's something very cutting edge for our region. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest in the state. So you will receive many more updates within the next several years, 24 months or so.
Just one more thing I want to add, and I'll close Pandora's box here, hopefully. The infrastructure in our dollars to fix it can only go so far. I think we all are aware of fiscal shortfalls but this is when I was part of the scoping effort for the safety plan. This is why I push for more, I guess passive is maybe the right word, driver education, and let's push for Charlotte to be known as a region that has good drivers. As a dad and financier of 2 recently minted teen drivers, that's what I push at home, you know. And again, at risk of sounding jaded, I don't know that we can go change all of the roads and highways around here with the limited funds that we have, but attitudes and behaviors we can. And I know that one's like trying to nail Jello to the wall. How do you do that?
Yeah,
But,
so traffic safety
in schools and public outreach.
Yeah, education is a tough one because I think when you stick a billboard in front of someone that says speed less, it's not very effective. We've all heard that type of messaging in one way or another. So we split this project into 2 solicitations. So there's a data analysis piece that is the Stantec team really developing the bread and butter plan. Then we have what just closed was a request for proposals for public outreach. And so that will be focused on messaging and uniformly branding the plan, but then also baking in some potential other tasks like piloting driver education, especially in our rural and disadvantaged school districts or just geographies where there is a school. And also focusing on law enforcement education. We have some partner organizations in mind to do that, but that would again be a resource that's unlocked to our entire planning area to embed that kind of enforcement piece, but also to really focus on education on new drivers or older adult drivers. And then also really focusing on folks that cannot drive, right? So folks with disabilities, folks that just choose not to drive, older adults that choose not to drive. So we will be covering a lot more than just data and, you know, priority projects as part of this plan.
Any further questions? Okay, great discussion. Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Okay, our last informational item is regarding the recommended projects for the 2025 discretionary funds call, and I will call up yours truly. Okay, sorry, you're gonna have to hear me talk a little bit more, but this last informational item, as I'd mentioned, is regarding the discretionary grants program. The purpose of this is a summary of the TCC workshop we held on December 4th and to review the recommended projects of that workshop. And second is just a reminder that we will take action on this in February of this year. You will be asked to make a recommendation as well as a recommendation for all amendments to the TIP that will have to happen. Just a review of the annual call timeline. The call opened on August 18th. It closed on Halloween. We did hold a TCC workshop to review the applications and create the recommended list that we'll go over. I'll say that was the first TCC workshop that we ever had because the POC dissolved and we changed the policy. Those who attended, it was well appreciated. We had very good discussion and thank you all for coming out that day. January, we're going over the information report with the recommended projects. This will go to the CRTPO board later this month. And then we'll come back in February to get action from a recommendation from this board and hopefully a positive action from the CRTPO board. So this is also a review slide, the annual call funding availability. We had about $51.5 million that were available, and those are to be allocated between the fiscal years of 29 and 31. Most of those are DA funds. We did have some TAP funds, but just remember we had about $51.5 million available to us. This is a summary of applications. So we had 4 new highway projects that were submitted for about $14 million, 2 existing highway shortfall submittals. We did have originally 5 bike pedestrian projects. However, I'll go over in the recommended list that one of those is withdrawn. So we have 4 to consider. We had 1 shortfall for bike ped And then we had 5 planning projects, which Mr. Cook had mentioned briefly in his UPWP report. So total, we had 17 applications, totaling about $26.5 million. So the roadway projects, we did have 2 shortfalls, one from Mooresville, which is the Silicon Shores East-West Connector Road. And you notice it's highlighted in yellow. So the original request was $1.2 million. However, with shortfall projects, you have to continue with the local match that you had when it was originally submitted. So Mooresville had a 50% local match in this project. So they weren't allowed to actually get that additional funding. So they have to stay with the 50% match, which is why this is reduced from 1.2 million to $750,000. Our other shortfall came from the town of Waxhaw, which is the Kensington Drive Improvement Project. And then we have 4 new projects. Another one from Mooresville, the Talbot Road Widening Project. We've got a project from Huntersville, Urban Cook Road Extension and Roundabout Project, an intersection project in Matthews, which is the Hargett Road and Sam Newell Road Intersection Improvement Project. And then we have an intersection project in Wesley Chapel, which is the Newtown Road and Billy Howie Road intersection improvement. And this one is sponsored by NCDOT. Total for recommended roadway projects is 15.8 million. Our bike ped project list that we received, we've got one from Matthews, which is the Monroe Sidewalk Project. We've got a Mecklenburg County project, the Irwin Creek Greenway Project. You notice again, we've got a yellow highlight here. So we do have a breakdown in the policy that 80% of funding target would be to roadway, 20% would be to bicycle pedestrian projects. So what we do with the policy, with those percentages, no one project can take more than 25% of the pots in that fund based on those percentages. So the 2.7 million for Mecklenburg County was slightly over that 25%. The 25% was 2.5. So Mecklenburg County has agreed to take the 2.5 million. It's not to exceed that 25% max in the policy. And we didn't want to set a precedent in anything, even though we do have additional funding this year. But that's the explanation for that. Monroe has a sidewalk project on Circle Drive. I guess it's more of a Syracuse Pass, I'm sorry. Another project from Mooresville, which is the Terrace Road Sidewalk Project. The one you see crossed out here is from Mooresville. This was a bridge over 150. Basically, you'll see the request was 4.5 million. Again, I mentioned those 25% max that we can award a project based on the policy. This exceeded that by quite a bit, so the town of Mooresville decided they did not want to pursue this at this time. And our last project was a shortfall project. This is the I-77 Rail Trail Bridge over, I-277. So the total we have for bicycle and pedestrian projects is slightly over $10 million. The planning projects, again, Mr. Cook had mentioned these in the UPWP report. We do have 5 projects. You can see the totals about $600,000. We've got one from Central Lina, one from Cornelius, 2 from Huntersville, and then we have a planning study for microtransit, which is, it says Mooresville, Iredell County on here. I believe Statesville is going to take the lead on this one, but the jurisdictions of Iredell County are all agreed to participate. So this is a summary of what we had with the workshop and the recommendations. So I mentioned that 80-20 split we have in our policy regarding highway, non-highway. So we are going to recommend funding everything in front of you today. So what we have here, highway projects total a little bit over $15 million. Bike ped projects, $10 million. And then the planning projects, a little bit over $600,000. So the way we're looking at this percentage by category, we're looking at the overall total of 51 million. So highway is going to take up 30% of that 51 million. Bike ped is going to take up 20% of that 51 million. So bike ped is right on that target. So as you can see, we're recommending slightly over 25 million for the call. And then we're going to have a carryover to next year of almost 26 million. So this is just an announcement that we're starting off with a good surplus for next year. Travis made an announcement at staff meeting yesterday that you might want to start thinking about this and getting your ducks in a row to maybe apply for some of that funding. So again, this was the informational item today. This will be given to the board later this month, and we will be coming back to you for action in February. So with that, I'm going to close my presentation and open up for any questions. All right, seeing none, we will move on to the next item. As always, you have your NCDOT reports in the agenda packet, and we have no other updates from any other entities today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Travis for upcoming issues.
For upcoming issues, first I'm going to call on Bob to make an announcement for the CRTPO.
Thanks. I had two announcements about some personnel issues, I guess I'll call them. Two pieces of really good news. First, we have a new hire who joined us this week, Thea Walsh. Thea, if you don't mind standing briefly. Thea joined, yes, her name is Thea. We have a Thea and a Theo, and confusion reigns. Thea joined us this week in a new position, Budget and Finance Analyst Senior position. This was a position we created for this fiscal year in recognition of the how complex the grants management process has been getting for us. Tamika has been amazing at what she does, but she is one person and very much needed support. So we created this new position. So we're very happy to have Thea join us. She joins us from Novant Health Foundation, where she worked as a senior grant writer. So in addition to grants management activities, I'm plotting ways to find out how we can take advantage of those grant writing skills as well. And then the second announcement is that, as some of you know, we had a program manager position posted that was posted last fall. We went through the interview process. We had a great crop of candidates for this job. I was very pleased about that. And what I'm very pleased to announce today is that our selection was for Travis to be the new program manager for CRTPO, and he will be responsible for creating a program area focused on short-range planning activities, the TIP, which he's been involved with for quite some time now, and other activities as well. But we had it just had a great, again, crop of candidates. Travis rose to the top. And he'll be, well, I guess you're actually officially in the position as of this week. So congratulations to Travis, and a welcome again to Thea. So, thanks, everyone.
We have three additional announcements. Announcement one is about the CRTPO board orientation. So this is a reminder for all TCC members to remind your board members that next Thursday, January 15th at 6 p.m. is the board orientation. Please get your board delegates and alternates to RSVP by noon on Friday, January 9th. That is tomorrow. This is an opportunity for new and returning members to meet CRTPO staff, hear about our core plans and programs, and learn about their roles and responsibilities as a board member. So please speak with your board members and get them RSVP'd. After this meeting, we will be sending out a member academy survey. The member academy survey will be a series of interactive training sessions on key topics to expand each member's jurisdiction's understanding of CRTPO's plans, programs, and resources. The survey is going to help design and inform the member academy curriculum and schedule. It should take about 2 to 3 minutes. So when I send a follow-up email, either come from myself or Brian. So please fill that out when it arrives. And then looking to the 2055 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, Phase 3 of public engagement will begin on January 12th. This phase of public engagement is focused on receiving resident input on the draft report. During the public comment period, the CRTPO is hosting an English language webinar on January 13th and a Spanish language webinar on January 20th. Please contact Merit or Judy if your jurisdiction has a public event that you would like the CRTPO to have a table at to help us promote for the 2055 MTP plan outreach. The public comment period that will begin on January 12th will end on February 10th. And then a summary of the public engagement results that we received to date will be shared at the February 5th TCC meeting. And then action will be requested during the March 5th meeting to recommend that the CRTPO board adopt the 2055 MTP and make an air quality conformity determination. And with that, those are all the upcoming issues.
Okay, well, that concludes our agenda today, so meeting is adjourned.